The departure board blinked once and settled into its cruel certainty. Flight 417, departed. I stared at it longer than I should have, as if the letters might rearrange themselves out of pity. My phone buzzed in my hand with messages from work I didn't want to read, and the airport around me continued breathing, rolling suitcases, tired announcements, the smell of burnt coffee and recycled air. I had missed my flight by 4 minutes. 4 minutes that felt like a verdict on my life. I sank onto a metal bench near gate C12, my carry-on upright between my knees, and let the noise wash over me. I told myself I'd rebook, that money wasn't the problem. It never was. The problem was that I had nowhere I wanted to go. Home felt like a hotel I'd overstayed in, a place with clean counters and no warmth. Work was a long corridor of meetings and polite lies. Missing the flight felt like a small rebellion my body had staged without asking my mind. That's when I saw her. She sat on the floor near the windows, back against a pillar, cradling a baby wrapped in a threadbare blanket. At first it was the baby that caught my attention, the impossibly small fingers curled around nothing, the soft rise and fall of a chest trusting the world to keep breathing for it. Then I noticed the woman's face. She was beautiful in a way that felt unfair to notice in a place like that, like finding a painting leaning against a dumpster. High cheekbones smudged with exhaustion, eyes that held a quiet, steady intelligence. Her hair was pulled back into a messy knot, strands catching the light. She couldn't have been much older than 30. People stepped around her as if she were part of the architecture. A janitor pushed a cart past without looking. A businessman nearly tripped over the edge of her blanket and swore under his breath. The woman didn't look up. She hummed softly to the baby, a tune I didn't recognize, low and soothing. I don't know what made me stand. Maybe it was the way the baby's sock had slipped off one foot, the tiny toes exposed to the cold. Maybe it was the memory of my mother's hands when I was small, always warm, always sure. Or maybe I was just tired of watching myself do nothing. I approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. "Hi," I said, my voice sounding louder than it should have in that space. She looked up, eyes sharp for a split second, then softened when she saw I wasn't security. I knelt a few feet away, aware of how ridiculous my suit must look from her perspective. "Hi," she replied. Her voice was calm, measured. The baby stirred, made a small sound, and she adjusted the blanket automatically. "I'm sorry," I said, because I didn't know what else to say. Do you need anything? Formula, a sandwich." She shook her head gently. "He's fed. Thank you." Her gaze flicked to my suitcase, then back to my face. "You missed a flight." I laughed, surprised. "Is it that obvious?" "The board," she said, nodding toward the blinking red letters behind me. "You keep looking at it like it might apologize." I followed her gaze and shrugged. "It hasn't yet." She smiled then, a small, quick thing that made something in my chest ache. "They never do." We sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the airport filling the space between us. I noticed the baby's eyelashes, absurdly long. I noticed how the woman's hands moved with practiced care, how she shifted her weight to shield the baby from a draft. I noticed the bruise on her wrist, half hidden by the sleeve of her sweater. "My name's Daniel," I said finally. "What's yours?" She hesitated, just long enough for me to notice. "Mara," she said. "And this is Leo." "Hi, Leo," I whispered, feeling foolish. The baby yawned, mouth a perfect O. We talked like that for a while, in fragments. She told me she'd been in the city for 2 weeks, that shelters were full, that the airport was warm and security mostly left her alone if she stayed quiet. She didn't tell me how she ended up there, and I didn't ask. I told her I worked too much, that I was supposed to be in another city by now, that my apartment was empty and clean and too quiet. At some point, an announcement crackled overhead about last calls and boarding groups, and something inside me snapped into a strange clarity. I thought about my apartment, the spare key on my keyring, the way the place echoed when I dropped my keys on the counter at night. I thought about the baby's sockless foot. I thought about how easy it would be to do nothing and walk away. "I have a place," I heard myself say. "Not here. An apartment. It's not far. You could." I stopped, suddenly aware of how insane this sounded. Her eyes were on me now, searching. "You could stay there. Just for a night. Or a few. It's warm. There's a crib. Well, there's a couch, but it's clean." The silence stretched. The airport seemed to lean in. "That's very kind," Mara said slowly. "But you don't know me." "I know," I said. "I know. I'm not asking for anything. I took a breath. I don't want him sleeping on the floor tonight." She looked down at Leo, then back at me. "And you, I'll rebook, I said. Or not, I can figure it out. She studied my face for a long moment. I wondered what she saw there: privilege, loneliness, stupidity. Finally, she said, I can't take you up on that. I nodded, embarrassed. Okay, I understand. She shifted the baby, and his tiny hand emerged, grasping at her sweater. But, she added, if you're offering the key, just the key. No ride, no strings. My heart thudded. I reached into my pocket, fingers closing around the familiar metal. The key was warm from my hand. I placed it on the ground between us, a small, ridiculous bridge. 3rd floor. Blue door. The building's old. The lock sticks a bit. She picked it up carefully, like it might bite. Thank you, she said. I won't forget this. I don't need you to, I replied. And I meant it. I watched them go, her walking slowly, one hand on the stroller she'd scavenged somewhere, the other holding the baby close. She didn't look back. I sat there long after they disappeared into the crowd, the empty place beside me feeling heavier than before. I rebooked a flight for the next afternoon and went home alone. The apartment greeted me with its usual silence. I stood in the doorway, suddenly aware of how exposed everything felt. I made myself pasta I didn't taste, watched a show I didn't follow, and went to bed too early. Sleep came in fits, images of blinking boards and small hands tugging at me. In the morning, the apartment felt wrong. Too neat, too empty. I walked from room to room, noticing things I hadn't before: the extra blanket folded on the chair, the spare mug I never used, the baby gate my sister had left after a visit months ago. I told myself I was being ridiculous, that Mara would take the key, sleep a few hours, and leave. That was the deal. No strings. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Daniel, Mara's voice said when I answered. I'm so sorry to bother you. It's okay, I said quickly. Is everything all right? Yes. No, I mean, Leo has a fever. It's not high, but I don't know this city. I don't know where to go. My heart dropped. I'm coming, I said. Stay there. I drove too fast, every red light a personal insult. When I reached the building, I took the stairs 2 at a time. The door was unlocked. Inside, the apartment was transformed. Toys, where had they come from, were spread across the rug. The air smelled faintly of baby lotion. Mara sat on the couch, Leo against her chest, his cheeks flushed. He's okay, she said immediately. I called a clinic. They said to monitor him. I knelt in front of them, my apartment suddenly not mine at all. Let's go in, I said. I'll drive. The clinic was a blur of paperwork and plastic chairs. The doctor was kind, unhurried. A mild infection, treatable, nothing to panic about. I felt my shoulders unclench inch by inch as Leo fell asleep again, medicine doing its quiet work. Back at the apartment, Mara exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for days. Thank you, she said. For everything. You don't have to thank me, I replied. But I wanted her to. She told me then. About the husband who'd promised forever and disappeared when the baby came. About the job she lost when childcare fell through. About the eviction notice taped to her door. She told me she hadn't planned to be strong, that strength was something people assumed when they stopped helping. I didn't tell you because I didn't want pity, she said. I just needed a door that would open. I looked around the apartment, at the life I'd been carefully not living. You can stay, I said. Longer. Until you get back on your feet. She shook her head, a reflex. I can't. You can, I said gently. We'll figure it out. The days that followed were strange and bright. The apartment filled with sounds I hadn't realized I missed: laughter, crying, the soft thump of a stroller against the doorframe. I missed my rescheduled flight and didn't rebook it. Work emails piled up unanswered. I learned how to warm bottles and rock a baby at 3 in the morning. Mara found a job at a cafe down the street. I watched Leo learn to smile. One evening, as the sun set through the living room windows, Mara stood in the doorway, key in her hand. I found a place, she said. A room with a woman from the cafe. It's small, but it's ours. I felt something twist in my chest. That's great, I said, and meant it. She placed the key on the table between us, the same ridiculous bridge as before. I won't forget this, she said again. As they left, the apartment felt quiet, but not empty. I looked at the departure board on my phone, flights to everywhere. I closed the app. I had missed my flight. I had given her my key. And somehow, in the space between those two things, I had found a life that finally felt like it was beginning.